Hey there, Dango Stu here. In today's video we're going to be changing out the prop shaft oil seal in the Evinrude 150. I've got to confess, I filmed this video on Wednesday. It's now Saturday morning. I went to edit it and realised I hadn't pressed record for the beginning section. So I'll show you that bit that I missed and then we'll push on. You can tell this isn't original footage because now there's a misfiring Pajero in the way, but we'll get there. Anyone know what Pajero means in English? The bit I missed filming was simply removing the little locking tab, so I'll show you that now. As I think we noted in an earlier video, this outboard's missing one of its locking tabs, but the bottom one here will take off and it's just held on by a little 1/2 inch fastener. Once that fasteners out, you can just lift the little tab out easily. Once you've got those two retaining clips out, which in my case I only had the one, you need a puller to pull the sort of bearing carrier out. This is the puller I'm going to use. It's just a sort of a block like this with a fine thread high tensile pin in the center. Then I've got some threaded rod here, which I'm going to cut in half and use as the two arms that go into the bearing carrier to pull it out. So this threaded rod is 5/16 in diameter and 18 threads per inch as the thread pitch. The manual says the threaded rod should be 280 millimeters long. This is going to be 500 long if I cut it in half, so a little bit too long, but I can always cut it down later and it'll be quicker just to do a single cut. Now I got in trouble last time for cutting this without a nut because I just used a thread repairing kit I've got, but if you don't have one of those, I'll show you how I'd cut it. I measured this threaded rod and it was 900 millimeters long, so I'm just gone to 450 in the middle here. Then I've got two nuts and I'm just going to do a cut between the two nuts to start with. So with our raw cut here, you can see we've got a bit of a lip there, so I'm just going to file that down. Next thing I do is take this nut and wind it off till it's almost all the way off to about there, so it's sort of deep in there. Just wind it back on again. Then I'm just going to do a really light file of anything that nut sort of pushed through. And then from there it should feel reasonably nice coming all the way through. Alright, the other end's the factory end, so no worries there. I'm now going to do the exact same thing to the other cut end and we'll start putting it into the gearbox. I've got two nuts per threaded rod, so what I'm going to do is actually take the second one, put it on the cut end, and then I'm actually just going to tack weld it on. This will give me something to put a spanner onto to thread it into the bearing carrier. If I didn't have that, I'd just be relying on my sort of finger grip on the threaded rod to get it into the gearbox. Look, if it's not going in easily, you should probably use a tap to clean the thread or something like that, but I figure it's not going to hurt. I'm going to wind this nut just a little bit past the end of the threaded rod, just to give it a little bit of a cup to fill. I melted one of the edges of it a little bit, but it'll still do the job. Because the gaps in this puller are quite large compared to the threaded rod, I'm going to go see if I can find a sequence of washers that are going to help with this. I might have to step up through a few different sizes of washers, which might make it a little bit weak, but we'll see how we go. I'll sort of double up where I need to and get a bit messy, but hopefully it'll do the job. Failing that, I'll just cut some steel plate and drill a hole for this to go through and just make a single strong washer. It's pretty ugly, but what I've done in the end is step up through 3 different sizes of washer with 2 of each, so that should do the trick. I've also just realised that these nuts on the end here fit through this puller, which is actually good, because what it means is down the track I can make myself a large single strong washer, then put a second nut on the end here to sort of bind it all together and just keep it as sort of a bit of a custom tool then. So I'll finish that up sometime and I'll post a photo on Instagram. So I'm just going to double check the rough distance I need. Yeah, that's about right. So as I thread this in, I want to go all the way in because I want it to be as strong as possible. If you only go a handful of threads in, you run the risk of, as you use the puller, just stripping those threads. I'm going to bring these to the puller rather than the puller to these because I want to make sure that they're even and that the puller's pulling as straight as possible. I think that's about right. Okay, I'll get a socket for here and we'll see how it goes. If it doesn't look like it's starting to come out, I'm going to start heating the gear case a little bit. This particular puller has a 22mm hex on the end, which is interesting because it's actually the same as a prop nut on a Yamaha, so that's kind of handy. I'm going to put a bit more pressure on this, just to sort of keep some load on it so the stretch in the bolts is there, and then I'm going to put a bit of heat on the gear case. So there's a fair bit of tension here now. Just put a little bit more tension on then. Just keep heating. Doesn't look like it's budging yet. When I was spraying before, I was spraying the bearing carrier because that's the bit you want to cool and have it shrink, whereas you want the outside casing to heat and expand. It actually feels like it's starting to move now. It's starting to move, so I'm just going to put the rattle gun on the end because I'm lazy. Alright. There we go. Still pretty warm, so I'm going to let that cool off. In the meantime though, I'm just going to take these threaded rods for the puller out. So I know people are bound to ask about this puller, and I actually can't remember where I got it from. But it does have on here OTC 522, so that might be something you can Google if you're looking to find a similar puller. I've found this one pretty good so far. I don't think it was sold as a marine one, but you can make up a variety of sort of hooks and threaded rods and things. And the great thing is it's just really strong, so this will never be the thing that fails. It's really well made. This section here looks very anode-y. I can't see any fasteners here, but I presume they're just buried, so I might brush this up and see if we can see how this is attached. Probably worth replacing it while we're here. Yeah, a bit of wire wheelings, revealing some fasteners under here, some hex bolts. This is the inside edge, inside the gearbox. This is the outside edge where the prop is here. And this is the oil seal here we're looking to remove. So we'll hoik this one out. It's interesting that rather than a stainless spring, this had a nitrile O-ring in it, so I don't know if that's, we'll find out in a second whether that's a Evinrude thing or whether somebody's sort of done the aftermarket thing I sometimes do, where you're taking a non-marine oil seal, taking the mild steel spring out and replacing it with an O-ring. This is actually feeling pretty stuck, so I'm going to put the bearing carrier in the vise so I can get a bit of leverage on it. There we go, not too bad then. Only a single oil seal on these Evinrudes. So I'll clean up that inner edge where it goes as well. Just using a little bit of brake cleaner there to clean away some of the sort of old carbon, old grease, and some of that emulsified oil. I ordered the parts for this project online from a company called marineengine.com. You can see up here, so that's a company in the States. They came within about 2 weeks to Australia, so that was really good. And what's even more exciting is I've been talking to marineengine.com about them sponsoring the channel. And so far that looks to be happening pretty soon. So that's sort of a bit of exciting news from my point of view. At the time I ordered these parts though, none of that was in the pipeline, so let's sort of push on for now. We'll crack this open and see what we've got. I'm already thinking I forgot to order O-rings, so we'll have to get a few other bits and pieces, but I'll show you what I did order. I'm always amazed these O-rings don't melt when you heat a gearbox like this. It'd be crazy not to replace them, but they don't look particularly damaged at all. They just got a bit of dry grease on them. There's our prop shaft seal. There's a part number there. And what have we got here? Some O-rings, which I believe are for the shift shaft, so we'll definitely be doing that as well. These are in envelopes, but they've got the part numbers on them, so I can look those up again to be 100% sure. Oh, here we go. Here we go, good. So this is the picking slip, and this picking slip's got those numbers, what the part actually is, so it looks like I did actually order one of these O-rings. I think I might have ordered the outer one, but not the inner one. I think they're actually the same size. So I'll consider seeing what condition these are in. I should have ordered two, that's my bad. So I'll open the prop shaft seal, the one we just removed. I'll compare it to the original one, and we may as well install that. Same diameter, same profile. Just going to put a little bit of marine grease just on this outside edge to help it sort of slide in. I'm going to start by using a 36mm socket because it goes over the outside section here to push down on this lip until it's flush. This socket won't actually fit inside, but it'll give us a good start to getting it in and getting it square. Now it's in flush around here. I've got a few options. One is a socket that will fit through, but it's putting all the force on this lip that's not very strong. So I'm thinking I'm actually going to use a punch and just keep going round and round and round until it's in as far as it can go and it's square still. As you're going round, just sort of step back a moment and have a look and just make sure it is still square. If not, just focus on the higher side for a little bit until it is. Having thought a little bit more about this O-ring situation, I do have one brand new one I ordered. I should have ordered two. But one of them is actually in really good condition of the original ones. Now, I'm going to put the best of the original one at the aft end of the bearing carrier because sealant goes on here, but as well as that, water actually comes past here into the exhaust, anyway when the motor stops. So this actually isn't sealing the gearbox. This one is. So I'm going to clean both of these grooves up. I'm going to put the brand new O-ring in the end that seals water from entering the gearbox, and then I'm going to put the best of the original ones into this end that just sort of seats the housing there. And I'm pretty comfortable that's going to be fine. To clean these, just going to use a little bit of brake cleaner and a brass brush. Looking here in the manual, this sort of confirms what I was saying about the O-rings, in that this is our model, it has an O-ring here and an O-ring here, but other models only have one O-ring at this end. This end doesn't actually keep water out of the gearbox, so I'm happy to have the old one here and have the brand new one at this end. Just popping our 2 O-rings back on the housing, making sure I've got the right one in the right place. Yep. Then says to put a little bit of grease on the new O-rings. With regards to the anode, the service manual says to replace it when it's about 1/3 worn. This is about 1/3 worn. I'd say it's on the cusp there, but I don't have one, and this really is about doing this video, so I'm going to push on and we'll keep this anode for now. Might replace it next service, for example, but we've now got the O-rings, the new one at the gearbox side, grease on them, and the new prop shaft oil seal installed. Now that bearing carrier is back together, I'm going to pop it back in before it gets dirty lying around the workshop. But before I do that, I'm just going to clean up the prop shaft and the inside of the gear case housing where that O-ring is going to seal against. And when this housing went in, it was the 2 bolts top and bottom and the anode on the bottom. It's a tight fit, there's no doubting that, so I'm going to get some wood onto here, I think, just so I don't damage it as I sort of drive it in. We'll know we've gone far enough in when there's enough room for this little locking tab to drop in again. The nice thing is there's a little score line around the inside here as well that lets you know that it's in square, so that's always nice. Okay, this one's in far enough now. So I'll put the little locking tab and its bolt in, but I've still got to order one because there was one missing on the top here. Not that I think it's about to fall out in a hurry, but you know. That's about all I've got time for tonight, so we'll wrap it up here. I'll probably do the video on painting Paul's outboard because we've already started that. As I said last week, we ended up with the wrong colour paint. I went back to Tatsu and it turns out that's the only colour they sell now. They don't sell the old sort of grey-brown colour they used to use. So Paul's taken the apron to a paint shop to get it colour matched and get a couple of cans made up, so we'll push on and get that done next week. The week after that, we'll push on and do the drive shaft seal and the shift linkage seal. Also, while we're there doing the drive shaft seal, I'll rustle up a bit of an impeller kit for this as well. We may as well throw one in. It looks pretty good, and I wasn't looking to spend a fortune to see whether this motor was running, but now we've had the problems, fixed the problems, come this far, I may as well do it. Alright, well thanks for watching, and I'll catch you soon. See ya.